Emma pressed herself against the trading post wall as her husband's voice boomed through the settlement, calling her name like a curse. The rough wood scraped against her back through her torn dress, but the pain was nothing compared to what waited if he found her. Her ribs ached where his fists had landed that morning, each breath a reminder of why she had to run. "Emma, get out here, woman." His boots thundered across the porch boards above her hiding spot beneath the steps. She held perfectly still, counting her heartbeats. 3 days of traveling had brought her to this frontier outpost. 3 days of walking with stolen bread and water from streams. Her feet were raw inside her worn boots, but she had nowhere else to go. The sound of approaching horses made her shrink deeper into the shadows. Through a gap in the wooden steps, she glimpsed riders approaching the trading post. These weren't settlement men with their loud voices and rough movements. These riders moved with quiet purpose, their horses responding to subtle signals rather than harsh pulling on reins. "We come to trade." The voice was deep, calm, speaking accented English. Emma peered through the gap and saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with long black hair and clothes that spoke of a different world than the one she knew. A Lakota Chief, she realized, noting the respect in the other riders' bearing toward him. Everything about him radiated strength, but controlled strength. Patient strength. Her husband's voice carried from inside the trading post. "Haven't seen hide nor hair of any runaway wife. But if I do, I'll be sure to let you know she belongs to a man who's looking for her." Emma's breath caught. Even here, Roy was spinning his web of lies, making allies of strangers. The chief's gaze swept the area and stopped precisely where she hid. Their eyes met through the gap in the steps. Emma tensed, ready to bolt, but something in his expression made her freeze. Not the predatory look she expected from men, not calculation or hunger, just quiet observation. "There is no one here who does not wish to be here," he said, never breaking eye contact with her. Roy's laughter boomed from the trading post. "Well, now, that's a fine sentiment, but wives belong with their husbands. That's the law." "White man's law," the chief replied simply. Emma watched as he slowly dismounted, his movements deliberate and unthreatening. He walked to the side of the building where she could see him better and crouched down until they were at eye level through the gap. "You are hurt," he said softly, so only she could hear. Emma pressed her lips together, refusing to make a sound that might give her away to Roy. The chief studied her face, taking in the bruises she couldn't hide, the fear that radiated from her like heat. "My village is half a day's ride. There are women there who understand healing. You would be safe." "Nothing's safe," Emma whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. "I am Maddo," he said, simply offering his name like a gift. "I give you my word. In my village, no man raises his hand to a woman. No man takes what is not freely given." Above them, Roy's voice grew more agitated as he searched. "Emma, you stop this foolishness right now." Maddo's jaw tightened at the harsh tone, but his voice remained gentle when he spoke to her again. "Choose freely. I will not move until you decide." Emma stared into his dark eyes, looking for the lie she had learned to expect from men. Instead, she saw something that made her chest tight with an emotion she couldn't name. Patience, as if he would wait there forever if necessary, asking nothing, offering everything. Her husband's boots stomped closer to the steps above her head. "Please," she breathed. Mato nodded once and extended his hand, palm up, waiting for her to reach for it if she chose to. When she placed her trembling fingers in his grip was warm and steady without being possessive. "You are safe now," he said, and for the first time in years Emma almost believed it might be true. Emma woke to the scent of sage and the soft murmur of women's voices, her body still coiled tight as a spring. Sunlight filtered through hide walls painted with symbols she didn't recognize, and for a moment panic seized her as she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. The kind chief, the ride to his village while she clung to consciousness on his horse, the gentle hands that had helped her from the saddle when darkness finally claimed her. "Ah, you wake." An older woman emerged from the shadows, her weathered face kind. "I am Winona. You are safe in my lodge." Emma pushed herself upright, immediately regretting the movement as pain shot through her ribs. Her torn dress had been replaced with a soft deerskin tunic that felt like luxury against her skin. "Your clothes were—" Winona gestured tactfully. "Beyond mending. These will serve until you are stronger." Through the lodge opening, Emma caught glimpses of village life. Children playing, women working with quiet efficiency, men returning from hunting. Normal life, peaceful life, the kind she had almost forgotten existed. "Where is he?" she asked, meaning Maddo. "Chief tends to his people, but he asked Winona to tell you. You rest as long as needed. No one disturbs your healing." As if summoned by their conversation, a shadow appeared at the lodge entrance. "May I approach?" Maddo's voice came from outside, respectful of the barrier. Emma's muscles tensed automatically, that familiar fear response she couldn't seem to shake. But Winona nodded encouragingly. "Come," Emma said, her voice barely audible. Maddo appeared in the doorway but came no further. In his hands he carried a wooden bowl that steamed gently. "Winona makes the best stew in 3 villages," he said, setting the bowl just inside the entrance. "She says you need strength." Emma noticed he stayed near the door, never approaching her sleeping area. Even his posture was unthreatening, relaxed, hands visible, ready to leave the moment she showed discomfort. "Thank you," she managed. "The man who seeks you came to our borders yesterday," Maddo said quietly. "I sent him away. He will not return." Emma's heart stuttered with terror. "He'll come back with others. The army, maybe. They'll make you—" "No." Maddo's voice carried absolute certainty. "This is our land, our law. He has no power here." She wanted to believe him, but fear was a hard habit to break. Roy had always found ways to hurt her, even when she thought she was safe. As if reading her thoughts, Maddo said, "You do not trust easily. This is wise. Trust is earned, not given." He paused. "I will earn yours if you let me." Through the lodge flap, Emma watched him interact with his people throughout the following days. She saw him settle disputes with patient listening, saw him help an elder woman repair her lodge without being asked, saw him teach young boys not just to fight, but when fighting was necessary and when it was not. Most telling was how he treated the village horses. She watched him approach a skittish mare that the other men avoided, moving slowly, speaking in low tones until the animal accepted his touch. He never forced, never demanded, just offered calm presence until trust was given freely. "He is good man," Winona said, following Emma's gaze. "His father was chief before him, but Maddo is different, gentler. Some young warriors think this means weak. They learn different when they see him protect what matters to him." Emma pulled the buffalo robe closer around her shoulders. "How do you know someone is truly safe?" Winona considered this seriously. "You watch how they treat those weaker than them. You watch what they do when they think no one sees, and you listen to your heart, but also your mind." That evening, as Emma finally ventured to sit outside the lodge, she heard voices approaching. 3 warriors, their tones urgent and challenging. "Chief, the white woman brings trouble to our people," one said. "Her husband will return with soldiers." Emma shrank back toward the lodge entrance, but Maddo's calm voice stopped her retreat. "Then we will deal with soldiers if they come," he replied. "But no woman flees to us for protection and finds instead betrayal. She is nothing to our people," another warrior pressed. "She is under my protection," Maddo said, and something in his tone made Emma look up. There was steel beneath the gentleness, strength that would bend before it broke. "That makes her one of us until she chooses otherwise." The warriors left, grumbling but accepting his word as final. Maddo never looked toward her lodge, never made their conversation about seeking her approval or gratitude. He had simply stated what was true and expected it to be respected. For the first time since arriving, Emma felt something loosen in her chest. Not trust exactly, but the possibility of it. When Emma finally ventured outside the lodge after 3 days, Maddo was teaching children by the river, his deep laugh carrying on the wind. She paused at the edge of the village proper, watching him demonstrate how to fashion fishing lines from sinew. His large hands moved with surprising delicacy, and his patience seemed endless as small fingers fumbled with the tasks. "Try again, little one," he encouraged a boy who had dropped his work in frustration. "The river teaches us that persistence carves the deepest channels." Emma found herself stepping closer, drawn by the gentle scene. In her world, men bellowed at children for being too slow, too clumsy, too much trouble. Here was a chief who knelt in the mud to help a small girl untangle her line without a trace of irritation. "Emma," Winona appeared beside her with silent steps. "You grow stronger." "He's very patient with them," Emma observed, unable to hide her surprise. "Maddo lost his own son 3 winters past," Winona said quietly. "Fever took the boy and his mother. Since then, all children in village are his to protect." Emma felt something twist in her chest. Loss. She understood that particular pain, though her losses came from different sources. A commotion near the horse corral caught her attention. A young stallion had gotten free and was rearing, striking at anyone who approached. The animal's eyes showed white with terror, and foam flecked his muzzle. "Careful," she whispered, though she was too far away to be heard. Several warriors had ropes and were attempting to corner the frightened horse. Each aggressive movement made the stallion more panicked, more dangerous. "Stop!" Maddo's voice carried clearly across the distance. The warriors froze immediately, stepping back. Emma watched, fascinated, as Maddo approached the terrified animal with the same cautious respect he had shown her under those trading post steps. He moved slowly, speaking in low Lakota words she didn't understand, but whose tone was unmistakably soothing. The stallion snorted and danced sideways, but didn't bolt. Maddo continued his approach, never making direct eye contact, never moving suddenly. When he was close enough, he extended his hand palm up and waited. The horse trembled, nostrils flaring, caught between fear and curiosity. Gradually, the animal stretched his neck forward and sniffed Maddo's offered hand. "How does he do that?" Emma asked Winona. "He understands fear, the older woman replied, "and he knows that trust cannot be taken by force." Emma felt those words settle into her consciousness like stones dropping into still water. She had been that terrified stallion for so long, striking out at anyone who approached because approach had always meant pain. But Maddo had never tried to force her trust. He had simply offered his presence and waited for her to choose. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and the western sky began to darken with approaching storm clouds. The wind picked up, sending dust devils dancing across the prairie. "Storm comes fast," Winona observed. "We should secure the lodges." Other villagers began their preparations with practiced efficiency, but Emma noticed several lodge covers straining in the wind. Her own temporary shelter looked particularly vulnerable. She was struggling with ropes that whipped in the wind when Maddo appeared at her side. "May I help?" he asked, having to raise his voice over the growing wind. Emma hesitated, her instincts still warning against accepting help from any man. But the storm wouldn't wait for her fear to subside. "Please," she said. Maddo moved around her lodge in smooth motions, securing guy lines and adjusting stakes with the expertise of someone who had weathered countless prairie storms. Emma tried to help, but her unfamiliar hands were clumsy with the knots. "Like this," Maddo said, moving closer to show her the technique. He was near enough that she could smell leather and sage, near enough that his warmth cut through the storm's chill. Emma tensed automatically, but Maddo immediately stepped back, giving her space. "I'm sorry," she said, hating how her fear made her flinch even from kindness. "No apology needed." Maddo's voice was gentle. "Fear is wisdom when it keeps us safe. It takes time to learn when safety is real." The first fat raindrops began to fall as he secured the final rope. "You will stay dry now," he said, satisfaction in his voice. As he turned to check on other lodges, Emma called after him. "Maddo?" He paused, looking back. "Thank you. For everything." He nodded once, then disappeared into the growing storm to help others. Emma ducked inside her lodge as the rain began in earnest, listening to wind howl around her secure shelter. For the first time in memory, she felt truly protected from the storm outside. And maybe, just maybe, from the storms that had raged inside her for so long. Emma's blood turned to ice when she spotted her husband riding into the village with two other men, his face twisted with rage. She had been grinding corn with Winona when the sound of approaching horses made her look up, and there he was. Roy, mounted on his big sorrel gelding, flanked by men who wore the hard look of hired guns. "Emma!" Roy's voice carried across the village like a whip crack. "I know you're here, you ungrateful witch. Come out now, and maybe I won't burn this savage camp to the ground." Emma dropped the grinding stone, her hands shaking violently. Around the village, normal activity stopped as people emerged from lodges and work areas to assess this threat. Children moved instinctively closer to adults. Warriors reached for weapons but didn't draw them yet. "Where is she?" Roy demanded of the first person he encountered, an elderly man who simply stared at him without understanding the English words. Emma tried to shrink back toward Winona's lodge, but her legs felt like water. This was always how it ended. Roy would find her, drag her back, and this time the punishment would be worse because she had run so far. Then Maddo appeared, walking calmly from the direction of the horse corrals. He moved with unhurried purpose, positioning himself directly between Roy and the heart of the village. Several warriors flanked him, but they followed his lead in remaining obviously peaceful while clearly ready for action. "You have business here?" Maddo asked in perfect English, his tone conversational. Roy's eyes lit with triumph. There he is, the savage who stole my wife. I want her back now and compensation for my trouble. I have stolen nothing, Maddow replied calmly. A woman came seeking shelter from harm. We gave it freely. She's my wife? Roy's face reddened. That means she's my property, and you had no right. No person is property of another, Maddow interrupted, his voice still calm but carrying an edge that made Roy's companions shift nervously in their saddles. This is Lakota land. Here we follow Lakota law. Emma felt Winona's firm hand on her shoulder. You must choose, the older woman whispered urgently. Chief defends you, but you must choose to be defended. Roy was still ranting. I'll bring the cavalry down on this whole nest of... Enough. Maddow's voice cut through Roy's threats like a blade. The woman you seek is free to speak for herself. If she chooses to leave with you, she may. If she chooses to stay, she stays. She doesn't get to choose, Roy snarled. I'm her husband. Emma saw Maddow's hand rest casually on his knife hilt, seeing several warriors tense for action. This could turn into a bloodbath in seconds, and it would be her fault. These people who had shown her nothing but kindness would die because of her cowardice. Taking a shaking breath, Emma stepped out from behind Winona's lodge. Roy's face split into a victorious grin. There's my girl. Now come here before I lose what little patience I got left. Emma walked forward slowly, feeling every eye in the village on her. When she reached Maddow's side, she could feel the tension radiating from him, though his expression remained calm. Well, Roy demanded, get over here, Emma. Emma looked at her husband, really looked at him. The cruel mouth, the small, mean eyes, the hands that had caused her so much pain. Then she looked at Maddow, who waited quietly for her decision without trying to influence it. No, she said, her voice barely audible. What did you say? Roy's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Emma straightened, feeling strength she didn't know she possessed flowing through her. I said, no, Roy, I'm not coming with you. Roy's face went purple with rage. You don't get to tell me no, you worthless... He spurred his horse toward her, reaching down as if to grab her, but Maddow moved with lightning speed. One moment Roy was reaching for her, the next he was on the ground with Maddow's knee on his chest and a knife at his throat. The woman has chosen, Maddow said quietly. You will respect that choice. Roy's hired guns started to draw weapons, but found themselves facing a dozen Lakota arrows. The message was clear. This isn't over, Roy gasped from beneath Maddow's weight. Yes, Maddow said simply, it is. When Maddow released him, Roy scrambled back to his horse, his bravado deflated. You'll regret this, he snarled at Emma. Both of you. As the three men rode away, Emma realized she was shaking again, but not from fear this time, from relief so overwhelming it made her dizzy. Maddow touched her arm gently. Are you hurt? Emma looked up at him, this man who had risked everything to protect her right to choose her own life. No, she said, for the first time in years, I'm not hurt at all. As her husband rode away in defeat, Emma felt something crack open in her chest, not breaking but blooming. The fear that had lived inside her like a caged animal for so long began to loosen its grip, replaced by something warm and unfamiliar. Hope, she realized. This was what hope felt like. You are bleeding, Winona said urgently, and Emma saw that Maddow's shirt was indeed stained with red, During the confrontation, Roy had managed to slash with a hidden knife before Matto subdued him. The cut across Matto's forearm was shallow, but needed tending. "It is nothing," Matto said, but Emma was already moving. "Sit," she commanded, surprise in her own voice at her newfound authority. "Let me help." For a moment, Matto looked as if he might refuse, but something in her expression made him settle on a fallen log near Winona's lodge. Emma knelt beside him, carefully examining the wound. "This needs cleaning," she said, her nurse's instincts taking over. During her marriage, she had become expert at tending injuries, mostly her own. As she worked, cleaning the cut with water Winona brought and binding it with soft strips of hide, Emma was acutely aware of Matto's stillness. He never flinched, even when she had to clean deeper than was comfortable. "You're very patient," she said softly. "You have gentle hands," he replied, his voice equally quiet. Emma's fingers stilled on the bandage. When was the last time anyone had called any part of her gentle? Roy had always called her clumsy, rough, too stupid to do anything right. "There," she said, securing the final knot. "That should heal cleanly." She started to pull her hands away, but Matto caught her fingers gently in his uninjured hand. Emma tensed automatically, but he made no move to restrain her. "Emma," he said, and her name in his voice sounded like something precious. "You faced him today. You chose." "I chose you," she said before she could stop herself. The words hung between them, full of meaning that went far beyond the day's confrontation. Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she didn't take the words back. "I would be honored," Matto said carefully, "to be chosen by a woman of such courage." "Courage?" Emma almost laughed. "I've been running and hiding for months. That's not courage." "You survived," Matto said simply. "You endured what would have broken others. You protected the light inside yourself even in darkness. That is the greatest courage of all." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever seen her survival as strength before. To Roy, she had been weak, worthless, a burden. To Matto, she was brave. "I don't know how to," she began, then stopped, unsure how to voice her fears. "How to trust," Matto finished gently. "How to believe that kindness is real. How to accept care without waiting for the trap." Emma nodded, unable to speak around the tightness in her throat. "Then we learned together," Matto said. "There is no hurry. Trust grows in its own season, like prairie grass after rain." That evening, as the village settled into peaceful routines around them, Emma sat beside Matto near his fire, not close enough to touch, but close enough to feel his warmth, his solid presence. "Tell me about your son," she said softly. Matto was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he began to speak, his voice rich with memory and loss. He told her about little Wolf, who had been 6 when the fever took him. About teaching the boy to ride, to track, to understand the language of wind and weather. "And your wife?" Emma asked gently. "Gentle Dawn. She was light and laughter. When she died with our son, I thought my heart had turned to stone." Emma understood, but it didn't. "No," Matto agreed. "Hearts that turn to stone cannot heal others, cannot recognize kindness that needs shelter." Their eyes met across the firelight, and Emma felt something shift inside her chest. Not the desperate gratitude of rescue, but something deeper. Choice, the freedom to love instead of endure. "Matto," she said, his name a question and an answer both. When he held out his hand, palm up as he always did, Emma didn't hesitate. She placed her hand in his, feeling calluses and strength and infinite patience. "I choose you," she said again, meaning it completely this time. "And I choose you," he replied, "for as long as you will have me." Emma stood in beaded dress as morning sun painted the prairie gold, no longer the woman who had hidden in trading post shadows. The doe skin felt soft against her skin, and the intricate beadwork caught the light like captured stars. Winona had worked for days on the dress, calling it a gift for a new daughter. "You are ready?" Maddow asked, appearing beside the lodge in his finest ceremonial clothing. Emma nodded, though her heart fluttered with nerves. Not fear this time, but the sweet anxiety of someone about to step into a new life. The entire village had gathered in a circle, their faces warm with welcome. Children sat cross-legged in the grass. Elders nodded approval, and the warriors who had once questioned her presence now stood as witnesses to her acceptance into their people. "In our way," the tribal elder began, "marriage is not taking of possession. It is joining of two paths into one stronger road." Emma listened as he spoke in Lakota, then English, weaving together traditions that honored both the sacred nature of their union and her journey to reach this moment. When it came time for vows, Maddow spoke first. "I promise to protect you, not by caging you, but by standing beside you," he said, his voice carrying across the gathered people. "I promise to love you not for what you can give me, but for who you choose to become. I promise to earn your trust new each day, like sunrise that must prove itself worthy of driving away darkness." Emma felt tears slide down her cheeks as she spoke her own promises. "I promise to trust the goodness I see in you. I promise to build a life with you, not just accept rescue from you. I promise to love you, not from gratitude, but from choice, made freely every morning." When the elder pronounced them joined, Maddow cupped her face gently in his hands. "May I kiss my wife?" he asked softly, still seeking permission even in this most sacred moment. "Please," Emma whispered. His lips met hers gentle as morning rain, and Emma understood finally what it meant to be cherished instead of claimed. The celebration that followed filled the day with laughter, food, and dancing. Emma found herself swept into women's circles, taught steps that made her laugh when she stumbled. No one minded her mistakes. Everyone simply celebrated her joy. As evening fell and the village settled into quiet, Maddow led her to their lodge. Not his lodge that she had entered as refugee, but a new one built for their shared life. "I was thinking," Emma said as they stood in the doorway of their home, "about what you said that first day, about trust being earned." Maddow waited for her to continue, patient as ever. "I think maybe trust isn't just earned," she said slowly. "Maybe it's also a gift we choose to give when we're brave enough." "And are you brave enough?" he asked, though his eyes already knew her answer. Emma smiled, feeling the last walls around her heart finally crumble. "I'm brave enough to love you, Maddow. Completely. Without fear." When he swept her into his arms, spinning her around in their lodge as moonlight painted patterns on the walls, Emma laughed with pure joy. This was what happiness felt like, not the desperate relief of escape, but the deep contentment of finding home. Later, as they lay wrapped in buffalo robes with the prairie night singing around them, Emma pressed her face against Maddow's chest and listened to his steady heartbeat. "No more running," she murmured. "No more running," he agreed, his arms tightening around her protectively. Outside their lodge, the village slept peacefully under star-bright sky. Inside, a woman who had once known only fear finally rested in absolute safety, held by a man who had taught her that love could be gentle, that strength could be kind, and that some promises were made to be kept forever. In the morning, she would wake as Maddo's wife, as a member of the Lakota people, as a woman who had found her way home at last. But tonight, she simply slept without nightmares for the first time in years, trusting in the strong arms that would guard her dreams until dawn.